Hi, my name is Tim Ferguson, and on behalf of all of us at the Venice Symphony, we're excited that you're here with us today as we launch our new digital content series. Although the theaters have gone dark, we hope to brighten your day with new engaging content featuring our musicians, area music teachers, and our own maestro, Troy Quinn. In the description of this video, you'll find a link to join our email mailing list so you don't miss a single moment. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Troy Quinn in Behind the Baton. Hi, and welcome to our first conversation through Zoom with Maestro Troy Quinn. Troy, how are you?
Tim, I'm hanging in there. I'm doing well. I miss you and all of our wonderful Venice Symphony supporters.
It's been a weird time since the last time that we saw you on the stage of the VPAC. What's going on in your world, and where are you talking to us from today?
Well, I'm in LA right now, so it's quiet, luckily, and peaceful at the moment. Beautiful day. So I've been quarantining here with my wife for what seems like an eternity. But I'm so anxious to get back to the concert hall. I've just been here studying my scores, catching up on the season, and making plans for what will hopefully be a wonderful 2021 season. So lying low, I got my hair cut today for the first time in 3 months, so that's a little ray of hope. And just slowly hoping to get back to normal as things open.
This leads to a question I know some people have. We see the conductor on stage, and we know what happens, and you're up there in front of the group. What sort of things do you do that leads up to that moment when you're in front of the Venice Symphony?
I don't really have, that's a good question. I don't have any sort of superstitions before I go on stage. Just that I'm prepared enough and, taking the music in. I'd like to just sit in my dressing room for a little bit before I get into the zone, as it were. Because to me, you have to be able to turn it on so quick and get into the mode to make music. So for me, it's just sort of that peacefulness just before I go on, but also that excitement. Sometimes I think behind the curtain and I think, what if I just ran out the door and went the other way, or I, God forbid, got sick or something. It's so funny to see that, palpitation before the music happens, and to have that type of, wow, okay, we really can't start unless I'm ready to go. So it's a humbling experience, actually, because you really get to see all of the cogs in the wheel before the machine starts going.
So you still get those nervous butterflies even today, huh?
It's more of an excitement, Tim, I would say. It's always like, wow, okay, we're ready to go, and there's that palpable sort of visceral energy in the room that I feel before I go on. Yeah, I know. It's like my drug. I tell that to everybody. It really is quite a high. Just to be in front of the orchestra, 80 musicians and my wonderful colleagues playing their hearts out. It's such a visceral experience and I have the best seat in the house to hear all that sound. So, that's why I keep doing it.
You definitely do. Now, one of the things that goes into that moment of being up there and having that experience, obviously, is the months and the years of playing that lead up to it. Talk us through, how do you have when you have a concept for a show, how does that process begin, and what are some of your inspirations to make a program like the one we'll have this upcoming season come from an idea to being onto the stage?
Yeah, that's a good question, too. My approach is a little bit more unorthodox than the traditional approach. Usually conductors will say, okay, I want to do Beethoven 3, and then they'll try to fit in a piece that works with Beethoven 3 and call it Beethoven's Eroica. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, I do programs like that all of the time. But more than not, I try to take a thematic type of approach and try to fit in pieces I really want to do, or that the orchestra is going to be challenged with, or that the audience is going to enjoy, and try to work that into a puzzle. So, for instance, this coming season we've got a night at the Oscars. Now that's pretty open book, because that's a lot of things you can cover in that type of program. But something that's a little bit more off the beaten path, like Game of Rome's. I know I wanted to do that theme and Italian music, and fitting Mendelssohn's Italian Symphony in there went along with that. The themes from Ben-Hur. We're doing part of the Carl Nielsen Aladdin Suite. So, thinking about the theme and trying to fit the pieces, into it is sort of seems unorthodox. But, for us it's worked. And certainly if there's a staple piece we want to do, I'll try to work or theme around it. We're doing Mendelssohn's Italian Symphony. Schumann 4 is going to be played this year, so that's a wonderful symphony. And that necessarily doesn't have to be thematic. It's on a program with superheroes and Schumann. Just an alliteration, but I kind of thought that was an interesting way to get both perspectives. So, and I obsess over this, Tim, of the pieces for weeks and weeks. I lock myself in my studio here and really think about it carefully and listen. Even now, what everyone's asking me, what am I doing? Well, I'm listening, studying. It's always learning new pieces, not just the standard repertoire. So it's never enough. A lifetime's never enough to do all of the work we have to do.
You mentioned Schumann and superheroes, and one of the things that our audience got a chance to witness last year is, a concert that wasn't one specific musical genre. We didn't just have a pops concert or just a masterpiece concert. We intermixed them together. We had Beethoven and Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen in the same concert. Can you give us a little bit of your philosophy on having those pieces of music and this ideas meld together like that?
Yeah, again, it's sort of an unorthodox approach, but my philosophy has always been music's either good or bad. There's not much in between, and that's cross genre and cross generational, to be honest. So, I'm a classically trained musician. I love Beethoven and Mozart and Brahms, but I also have an interest in Danny Elfman and John Williams, and even Vaughan Williams, somebody like him who wrote beautiful classical music and showpiece pieces like Lark Ascending we'll be playing with Fabiola Kim later this year. But he also wrote wonderful film music and war music, and so all of these things, there's so much great stuff out there too, and so especially for the orchestral setting, I think what we're trying to do, at least in my approach, is to expose our audiences to the best symphonic music. And that's not always classical, but that I always describe it as the Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms are the meat and potatoes of what we do, because it's so challenging. Usually those are the more challenging pieces than a film score. Now, John Williams is an exception. His pieces are very, very intricate, difficult, and multifaceted, which is why everybody enjoys not only listening to it but playing it. And so again, I think my approach has always been to try to get a healthy diet, as it were, of pieces that may not be familiar and gateway to pieces that may bring you into Mozart or Beethoven. My upbringing is a perfect example of that. I went to a John Williams concert at the Hollywood Bowl when I was 15 years old, here in Los Angeles. My parents were on vacation, sort of dragged me. And I was not really a guy who grew up with classical music, and I studied piano since I was 5. I have a very unorthodox upbringing, as you know, Tim, and so I came to orchestras late, but I was obsessed. I was an orchestra person once I heard that sound, and I saw John Williams at the bowl, and I said, wow, I want to do that. I didn't know what conducting was. I didn't even read music, at that point. But that's what brought me into discovering Beethoven and Mozart and the classics, which are part of my heart and soul. And that music, the film music, like John Williams and even people like Korngold going back, Max Steiner, Gone with the Wind, that type of music was so symphonic and classical to me that then it opened and became a natural bridge into discovering the real classics. And so that, I think, is how most people are coming to classical music these days. It's very rare for my generation to sit down for more than 2 minutes and listen to an hour Shostakovich symphony. There's got to be some, even though it's great, and I know it's great, and I believe everybody loves classical music, they just don't know it yet. And so that's a tool, I think, to come to that same consensus that I came. I love classical music, you know.
It's neat you mentioned that kind of watershed moment you had. I remember I was in college, and I went to Tanglewood during the summer, and I saw the Boston Symphony Orchestra with Seiji Ozawa. John Williams comes on stage to do the Lincoln Portrait. Next thing you know, it's James Earl Jones, Darth Vader himself, out there doing the narration. At that moment, it's like, wow, this is so cool. And it's like having those moments where, exactly, you wouldn't produce or proceed to go out maybe and see that music, but just having that chance to see it live is really cool. One of the things, as we talked about, being on quarantine and being away, and of course you just celebrated your first anniversary with your beautiful wife Shiva, so congratulations. What have you been doing to not go stir crazy during this crazy couple months here?
Well, like all of you in Florida, I have a beautiful view, and the palm trees are swaying, and the beach is not too far, and they reopened that. So I've been able to do that. And keep active, running on the beach, and I'm a big sort of running cycle guy, so I've been doing that. But honestly, I've been trying to keep in shape, just for all musicians, this is really important, just mentally, and still practicing and still being on our game, because, this is probably the longest amount of time in my adult life, in my professional life, I've gone without making music or conducting or singing or anything. So I think it's important to still stay fresh and still work on your craft. And so I get that question asked all the time, well, what are you doing when there's no concerts? Well, there's a lot to do, actually, not just the musical side, as you know, Tim, but the administrative side. And so, it's really been a time to focus what's really important in life, and certainly music is at the top of that for me, and to take priorities, because now we don't have any distractions. It's all quality time. And so it's actually, I think, a healthy thing to sort of reprioritize where people are at and what they value. And, luckily, me and my family are safe and sound, and I'm just looking forward to get back in the concert hall. It's like the Rocky sequence when Stallone's training. Now it's not quite that cool in my world with the studio studying the scores, but that's what I'm in. I'm in the zone of I'm ready to get back when the fight's going to come.
I don't know. I can still picture you kind of maybe shadow boxing as you take out that Brahms score. I think you're getting fired up, looking forward to this next season, and that's some of the things that we're going to do when we have these chats that we're going to share online. Is we're going to go through and kind of, as we get closer to the season, get a chance to dive a little deeper and talk to it. I love the pre-concert talks that happen prior to our concerts, but this will allow us to even expand that concert talk prior to arriving at the day of the show. And we hope to also answer some of those viewer questions that are really, really out there. And people are always wondering, I do know one. I don't have my questions in front of me, but we're gonna have a link in the notes today so you can submit some questions. But the question I hear the most, Troy, is now you're up there, you don't have any music in front of you. Now I know you have music when you have rehearsals and stuff, but when you're conducting it, it's all from memory. How did that process happen? What inspired you to do that? Give us a little background on that technique.
Well, and it's not that uncommon, Tim, for, the major conductors, and certainly with the standard repertoire, to do things memorized. I think the unusual thing is, at least my capacity is maybe a little above average on that deal. I mean, I had teachers at University of Southern California who were very fixated, actually, on memorization. And so, even when I studied in college, and I mostly studied voice and piano and opera, the memorization came naturally to me. Now, that's a lot easier than trying to memorize 26 staves and a whole orchestra symphony that's an hour long. But I didn't really know that I had any ability for it until I started to do it. And it was like something unlocked. For me, it was just a challenge. Well, let me see if I can do this. And, I had that discipline also in Manhattan School of Music, where we were memorizing a lot of music. Now, granted, it wasn't all symphonic music, but it became a natural progression for me, and it became almost a game. Let me see how long. Can I do 30 minutes? Can I do an hour? And can I do Appalachian Spring? Can I do Rite of Spring? All the most difficult repertoire. And, you know, that in and of itself may look impressive. I know everybody's always talking about it. And goodness knows Dudamel and Bernstein. I watched a lot of Bernstein growing up, and I just saw no music, so I thought that's the way conductors did it. You know, Carlos Kleiber conducting Vienna when he does his Brahms symphonies. I mean, I grew up with looking at all of that and just thinking this is what a conductor does. There's no barrier. So for me, getting off the score is the most important thing. It's not because, oh, well, look at my near photographic memory. You know, many people can do that, and many people like Lorne Mazel of the New York Philharmonic actually did have a fairly photographic memory where he could say a bar 500, it's a C flat in the oboes. You know, I mean, same thing with Leinsdorf of the Boston Symphony. There are stories about him and his immense memory recall. So it's always a test, and it's like a muscle. You stretch it over time. And so, you know, luckily it served me well, but there's also an aspect of excitement in a weird, terrifying way. Well, will I remember? Will I have a senior moment and things, you know, fall off for a second? Knock on wood, that hasn't happened. But the key to it all, Tim, is that there's no barrier. And if I'm prepared with the orchestra, then I come in knowing the piece cold. You know, I remember hearing a story about Leonard Bernstein, how sometimes, and he's one of my idols, you know, he would go in to do a Vasek opera or you know, a Berg opera or some of these outrageously difficult pieces that were not in his repertoire, and he'd be learning it on the fly. You know, I never wanted to be in that situation where I was learning something doing it. Now, there are times where you have to, where you get called in to do something. I remember getting called in to cover for the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra just a couple years ago, for this Scottish conductor, Dougie Boyd, great conductor. And, you know, they were doing a Haydn symphony, but it wasn't one of the well-known ones, like 88 or the London Symphony. It was, and I can't even remember what it was, but it was like, you got 3 days to learn this. So clearly, if I was tested, that would be difficult. But, and you kind of just have to go in, and sometimes you need the score, especially for 21st century works. I mean, things that are changing meters every other bar. But to me, it's always the goal to get off the music, create no barrier, because every orchestra I've worked with, from Rochester, Phil, to LA, to Venice, has always said the same thing. It's better music making an ensemble. And that's why, you know, to me, that's the pinnacle, if you can do it. And so, so far, so good.
And I think connectivity is huge. I think the more that you can connect with the musicians, and I remember as a musician sitting there and looking up for my trumpet and just seeing somebody's head down looking at the score, but when I see somebody up and you can see the emotion in their body, in their expression, their face, you connect as a musician, and of course the audience is going to receive that same benefit from connecting with the orchestra as well. So I think it's a win-win. So thank you for all your efforts that go into that process that make, you know, that just brings the entire quality to another level.
Well, you know, Tim, too, as a conductor and educator, and I tell my students this all the time at USC, you know, the orchestra cannot be fooled. You got about 30 seconds before they're going to follow you or not, or respect you or not. And make a decision about that and really know your musicianship. So you can't fool them. And there's nothing wrong with having the score there. I mean, or if we're doing a film, obviously, or an opera, most of the time we will need that score. But I think that the parameters of that are not to let that impede the music making, you know. And so the orchestra can call that out in a minute if you're buried in the score and don't know it. If you have it there as a slight crutch, that's going to create a better ensemble. So, you know, for me, that's the Bible. That is the most pure form, being true to the music. And that's my job as a conductor, to try to interpret the composer's intention. And so for me, anything I do, anything on the podium too, you know, I'm not too passive. You know, I'm pretty energetic, and all of that it really emanates from the music. If I'm getting even upset or happy or glad. It's really because the music's telling me this is what's happening and this is how it needs to go.
Wonderful. And that's the thing, that I love the fact that we can have these conversations, and eventually we'll be able to have them in the same room instead of 3 time zones apart. But it's like getting a chance to, work with you, know about you outside of the concert hall, to get to know what your history that brought you to Venice and that experience and the wealth that's there. I think this is going to be really, really cool to have these conversations. I want to thank you for your time today. And listen, November 20th is right around the corner. It's going to be really, really soon.
And people are getting their tickets. We've got some wonderful responses already. People are ready to get back to the concert hall. And so when it is safe and well to do so, we are moving forward and looking forward to seeing everybody and making music again with greater resolve. I think everything that's happened and transpired over the last few months has really given us an opportunity to reflect on how great a gift this is and how fortunate we are, and me personally, to be able to do this for a living and to bring some sort of joy to folks. It's what we live for. So thanks for your time, Tim, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you again.
No, this has been great. Remember, if you have a question for Troy, that we can open up the mailbag for future things. We'll have the link below here, and then send that question in to us. But we're excited to keep this conversation. We are totally socially distant. We are way more than 6 feet apart right now. But it's going to be great when we all get together in the same hall soon. Troy, thank you so much.
Look forward to seeing you soon, Tim. Thanks.
Well, that was great, getting a chance to catch up with Troy. We can't wait to have him back here in Venice again soon. In future episodes of Behind the Baton, we'll learn more about Troy's background, what brought him to conducting, and also we'll explore the different music and the programs that we'll enjoy in this year's symphony season. Remember, we'll also have the Maestro mailbag, so please click on the link in the description to find out how you can have your question asked in a future episode. Again, don't forget to sign up for our email mailing list so you won't miss a single moment. Thanks, we can't wait to see you soon.